first inaugural episode of our new monthly Root and Branch Association seminar. The title is abortion is in quotation marks, Malach, Mass Murder, Child Human Sacrifice Global Industry Seminar, chaired by Mrs. Cecily Routman, a real Joan of Arc, Boudica, Deborah of our times. We live in historic, prophetic, messianic times, whether we like it or not. And welcome to Mrs. Routman's guest, Professor Rabbi David Novak of Toronto, is a professor of Jewish studies at the university, one of the universities there. Cecily will tell us more about it. Let's ask Rabbi Novak to unmute. I'm especially interested to hear what Professor Novak has to say because I have my BA from Swarthmore College with a special major in religion and the philosophy of science. So I'm always happy to hear a man of ideas, a person of letters, thought, thinking, speaking intelligently on a subject. And this is a day where we can all be, I don't know what the word is, after 51 years, in 1971, the Supreme Court of the United States of God of Israel, bless America, overturned that terrible decree, which has resulted in incalculable suffering over a 51-year period. World War II was 6 years, 39 to 45. The 30 years war was 1618 to 1648. World War I was 4 years. This war against humanity went on 51 years. That's only part of it. And now, without further ado, let me hand over the mic to our chair, Mrs. Routman, and Mrs. Routman's guest, Rabbi Professor David Novak. Lady and gentlemen, it's all.
Thank you, Mr. Gallen. It's a pleasure to be here and a great honor to be part of your Root and Branch Association. So what I thought I'd do today is talk a little wee bit about the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation and then introduce Rabbi Novak and then talk a little bit about the Dobbs case and Roe versus Wade going down. And then I wanted to talk a little bit about a congregation in Florida that's suing the state of Florida to stop their 15-week abortion ban, and a beautiful letter that one of our supporters wrote to that rabbi. We have wonderful people now supporting us and encouraging us all the time. And then I want to appeal for some volunteer help translating some of our graphics for our Israel pro-life education project that we're trying to get started and we need help with. And then we do have a healing event coming up in July that I wanted to share with your audience about. So, as you would say, without further ado, the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation started with an idea that I'm sure the good Lord gave to me. I was not a socially conscious person. It wasn't really on my radar. But back in 2005, I heard a Jewish woman on a national public radio broadcast about the review of the ban on partial birth abortion that the Supreme Court had passed. And she was screaming about her right to have an abortion as a Jewish woman. And it was her civil right and her religious right. And I didn't feel good about that. It really bothered me. And so I started to look into the subject, and I was horrified at what abortion was and that so many Jews were getting on board with it. So with after some hesitation, I started the project in 2006. And our mission basically is to provide alternatives to we've actually tried to save Jewish lives basically by promoting life-saving alternatives to abortion in the Jewish community. And how do we do that? We provide much-needed pro-life education, Jewish-friendly pregnancy care and adoption referrals, and healing after abortion. And it's been quite a journey getting from our inception to here. And Rabbi Novak has been on board with us since, well, before we actually incorporated. I was looking around for support, rabbinical counsel when we started. And he was somebody that stepped right up and said he would be on our board before I actually knew what a board of directors was. So he's been patient and always there for guidance and support and help since then. And I'm just so pleased to introduce him to your audience. So just briefly, he is president of the Union for Traditional Judaism, which he co-founded in 1983. And as he had said earlier, since 1997, he holds the J. Richard and Dorothy Schiff Chair of Jewish Studies as Professor of Religion and Philosophy in the University of Toronto, where he is a member of the University College and Joint Center for Bioethics. And we've spoken briefly about what happened with Dobbs and Roe, and I'm looking forward to hearing him share a little bit about that. And just so will you please help me welcome Rabbi Novak?
Well, thank you, Cecily, for the introduction, and it's a pleasure and a privilege to be on this program, and also it's a pleasure and a privilege to work with you all these years in a very good cause that is beginning to attract the attention it deserves. So that is my involvement with the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. Just one other thing, you mentioned my other hat as president of the Union for Traditional Judaism, which I was one of the founders of in 1983, a long time ago. We were a group that basically broke off from the Jewish Theological Seminary, where I had studied, over some other issues. But they told us that we would last for 6 months, and thank God we're still alive and kicking, as we would say. So that is my title. I'm also, and as president, I'm more or less a figurehead. We have younger people who are really doing the work. But what I do is I am coordinator of our panel of halachic inquiry, which deals with halachic questions. Now, our policy of the panel is to only deal with questions, real life cases, that are submitted to us by rabbis and other professionals. That is the way the traditional tshuva literature, responsive literature, was handled. So we were asked actually to make statements about public policy issues like this issue, and that is not within our domain. We only deal with individual questions. We do not make public policy involvement. However, I am involved with the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. I'm honored to be vice president, I should say. Cecily's the president. But this is a different capacity. So as I just want to make that clear. And I think that a lot of the seemingly pro-abortion sentiment that supposedly is argued out of the Jewish tradition dealt with not abortion as a matter of public policy. It dealt with isolated cases at a different time when abortion meant something entirely different. And there's a rule in the Talmud that we don't generalize from particular cases. Only when it's halacha l'maaseh, in other words, that it has a theoretical basis and also is to be practiced. But if it's just maaseh, if it's just a case, then that is dealt with differently. So that's why my other group has not become involved in this, although some of us are as individuals. And that leads me to another point. And that is that you mentioned this congregation in Florida, suing and whatever. I find it bizarre that the overwhelming number, with some exceptions, with the overwhelming number of Jews who are invoking Jewish law, many of whom couldn't read the text in the original if their lives depended on it. But even if they could, these are not people who are committed to the authority of the halakha. They're not committed to the authority of Jewish law, which sometimes is going to come out in favor of what they're in favor of, and sometimes, as one ancient rabbi said, he said, "I would love to eat pork, but my Father in heaven has said otherwise." But when you're part of a system, then you can quote it authoritatively when you accept its authority. But to quote it authoritatively in a system that you don't accept its authority, where you pick and choose when it supposedly says what you want it to say, is totally disingenuous. I mean, this would be the equivalent of me standing up in a Canadian court invoking German law. German law has no authority in Canada. I mean, one might cite it as an analogy to something, but you have to find something within the tradition. So that is that question. But what disturbs me and what disturbs you are Jewish organizations like the National Council of Jewish Women, who have made this their raison d'etre, their reason for being. When all the other things that are confronting the Jewish people, I mean, assimilation and whatever, and what's going on in the Ukraine, and the threats to Israel, and the disaffiliation of so many Jews in the United States, they've made this their issue, which tells us that their commitment to Judaism is secondary to their commitment to some kind of woke ideology. The Torah is, to use a rabbinic phrase, is not meant to be used as a spade to dig with. It's not meant as a tool for promoting somebody's agenda. And that is what we face today. And therefore, it's important that folks like us indicate that the Jewish community, in terms of halacha l'maaseh, in terms of what is the law, is that abortion is a prohibited form of killing unless the fetus poses a direct threat to the life of the mother, which we know in today is what is it? 0.1% of abortions are actually to save a life. So, I mean, this is what the Talmud calls miyut b'miyutin. In other words, a minority of a minority, which is the case. But I know of no law that is being proposed that doesn't recognize the exception for saving a life. So this is what we are up against, and we are, there's not going to be any final victory. The final victories always belong to God, but we have to do the best we can of speaking the truth when we clearly. It's not that the tradition is on our side, the Torah and tradition. It's that we're on the side of the Torah and tradition, and in this case, we're horrified that people are interpreting the Torah panim shelo kol halacha. In other words, that they're interpreting the Torah for the exact opposite effect of what the Torah is meant to accomplish. So that is how I perceive our task, and that's why when Cecily Routman invited me a long time ago to be part of this new group she was organizing, I said, I'm glad there's some other folks out there in the Jewish community who are concerned about this, because many people in the traditional Jewish or Orthodox Jewish community just don't regard this as much of an issue. it's to be treated like an ordinary halakha question when it's not an ordinary halakha question. It becomes a matter of public policy and where there are entirely different. There's a concept in the Talmud Halacha vein morin kain. In other words, that even if somebody can find through nitpick, pilpul and all sorts of kind of reasons for permitting abortion, or let alone saying that there's a right to it, we have to realize that we have to look at the overall perspective of the Torah. And deciding that even if something can technically be permitted, it still ought not to be publicly proclaimed. So anyway, that is where we're at. That's why I'm involved in this cause, and let's hope. I mean, the U.S. The Supreme Court decision is a step in the right direction, and also we Jews have to figure out that if we support something that is a matter of public policy, say in the United States, a secular society, then we have to do it not because the Jewish tradition is telling non-Jews what they should be doing, but rather it's that the Jewish tradition recognized that there was a prohibition of shedding innocent blood, shvichut damim, that applied to all humankind, the Bnei Noach, the children of Noah, or humankind after the flood. Therefore, the Torah simply accepted this as something that was already in place. So that therefore, when we speak to the larger public, we're not saying do this because the Jewish tradition says do it. The Jewish tradition says do it because this is something that God commanded all humankind, that is accessible through human reason, even before the giving of the Torah at Mount Sinai and the acceptance of the Torah at Mount Sinai by the Jewish people. So that is where we're at, and I think that it's important that those of us in the Jewish pro-life movement, whether formally or informally, realize very carefully where we're coming from, what we can say, what we cannot say, in terms of these public forum, because people on the other side are distorting the tradition, distorting the Torah, and therefore this requires that we Damasha Tashiv, as the Mishnah says, you have to respond to this and answer it. Not that you're going to convince these people, but just convince the general public that these people are basically fraudulently interpreting the Jewish tradition.
Yes, Rabbi, thank you so much. We really appreciate the rabbinical wisdom and a clear understanding that you have, because it can get so complicated. I remember when I started, I didn't quite understand what Judaism taught about abortion, authentic Judaism. It took me a really long time, even in the midst of my work, to realize, yes, it's a baby, and we don't believe in killing them. It's so simple. And something that I wanted to share, we decided not to affiliate with any Jewish denomination when we started. And that was the correct thing to do, because now, of course, we see that, as you mentioned, even observant Orthodox organizations have not come out clearly against abortion in the public square. And that contributes and feeds into the radical Jewish approach and public opinion that Judaism is a baby-killing cult. Instead of standing up clearly and saying, no, that's not what Judaism is, even our Orthodox organizations are very wiggly on the subject. So I'm really glad that we can provide that clear voice. And I do my best to contact and encourage folks at like Agudas Israel or the OU, just sort of like nudging them along to be a little more, less concerned about offending any donors and more concerned about pleasing Hashem and showing Judaism in the correct light. Because whenever we come out in public and give the impression that we believe in killing children, I do believe that that incites our anti-Semitic opponents with just more reasons to take offense about us, and that's not safe either. And I think I read, you can correct me if I'm wrong, in Maimonides said that one of the gravest sins a Jew can commit is to, in public, present Judaism as something other than it's not, or in a negative light. Is that somewhere in the tradition?
No. It's the prohibition of Chilul Hashem. Chilul Hashem, the profanation of God's name or God's reputation, means people who interpret the Torah in a way where the Torah appears to be morally inferior to what other people, for very good reason, hold. And that is, the Torah is supposed to be at a higher level than the morality of the non-Jewish world, but not less. And therefore, in the tradition, and pardon me for self-promotion, but my book, The Image of the Non-Jew in Judaism, which deals with the Noahide laws, provided a rubric for those Gentile communities that Jews could engage with in good faith, and those that were beyond the pale. And this is very important. One of the canards, one of the falsehoods of, shall we say, more liberal Jews and Jewish groups, is to portray the pro-life movement or the anti-abortion movement as playing into the hands of Christian fundamentalists. That it becomes a standard regard. So it appeals to the what I would call the Christophobia of a lot of Jews. There are a lot of Jews who think that all they need to know about Judaism is that it's not Christianity. Well, we have some very big differences with Christianity, to be sure. But when it comes to basic moral questions, we don't have a difference with them because Christians who are honest, and most of them are, will admit that the moral law that they affirm is the law of the Torah. It's on certain theological questions and ritual questions that we have a big difference with them. So it's not that Jews are playing into the hands of Christians, but that Christians, in their opposition to abortion, are drawing upon their Jewish roots.
Yes, I completely agree. I have had to defend our Christian friends' support of us to other Jews by saying, where do you think they got their pro-life sentiment and understanding? It was from Torah. We gave it to them. You have forgotten it.
Well, I mean, there's an interesting passage in the Talmud earlier in the Tosefta that the Torah was proclaimed in 70 different languages, and the nations of the world sent their representatives to take some of it for themselves. Well, what they took for some of themselves was the morality of a system that is basically that every human being is created in the image of God, that every human being has an inherent sanctity, which they can either activate or deny. But it is there. And therefore, this was something that was recognized, and this is something in the great change in Jewish-Christian relations, where especially more traditional Christians, whether Catholic or Protestant, are interested in better relations with the Jewish people and Judaism. I found that the pro-life movement was a movement that brought me into intimate contact with some leading Christian thinkers and activists. And there was no question that I was trying to convert them to Judaism or they were trying to convert them to Christianity. And that was the basis of my long friendship and association with the late Father Richard John Newhouse, and others who were still alive and with us in this world. So these are the falsehoods that we have to speak out against. Not engaging people on the other side. They're really not open to arguing. You have to be very careful if you're in a public forum who's there and who the audience is. You know, don't allow yourself to be used as a straight man for for their agenda. I've fallen for that trap a number of times, but I think I'm wiser now. But just that it's known that we're speaking the truth. And I have found, by the way, that serious Christians are really only interested in engaging with similarly traditionally minded, Bible-believing, if you will, Jews. It used to be that Jews thought that they could get along with, Christians by being as un-Jewish as possible, and that was is totally belied now by that fact. And the alliance of very liberal, or on the left, Jews and very liberal Christians, that alliance is based upon a commonality that has no basis in either Judaism or Christianity. As I say, these are the things, and we have to continually convince ourselves that what we're saying is authentic. It's not just political posturing.
Well, I am so glad that you were not persuaded to leave Judaism, because we really treasure you, and I know that there are many of your peers that did convert to Catholicism. We have a lady on our board that's always sending me information about this one converted and that one converted and why did they do that. And it's just, it feels so good to, speak with you and know that your commitment to Judaism is so deep and strong in a day when, there is so much confusion and indecisiveness, I guess, about faith and emunah. And I've just learned recently that, our faithfulness towards Hashem is like the bedrock of our belief in Him.
Yes. I mean, it is. The question is, what does it mean to be living under a law that you accept as been made by God, interpreted by human beings, to be sure. Lo b'shamayim, it doesn't get interpreted in heaven; it gets interpreted down on earth. But ultimately, it means that you're committed to a law, to a Torah, which is not of human making, and therefore humans cannot unmake it.
Amen. That's right.
And that is the basis of that. And when we find that kind of acceptance of a basic law that enabled the Jews to accept the Torah at Sinai, that they were already, if they had been a lawless mob, they would have been in no position to accept the higher law of God if they hadn't accepted the earlier law that was available to all human beings. But I think that what we have to basically indicate is that nobody has the right to kill except in self-defense. Nobody has the right to kill. And as the late Pope, Saint John Paul II, who was a great friend of the Jewish people and a great somebody who very much honored Judaism, he decried that we live in a culture of death. I mean, people who are celebrating the fact that making it their cause to be is that we should kill. Killing that somebody's right, supposedly, to do whatever they want is it takes precedence over a human life. That is something that is a culture of death, and you find that many of the people who are pro-abortion are also pro-euthanasia, and I mean it's of a package. It's of a package that God commanded us to live and not die, and said that life and all created existence is very good, tov mode. So that is what we're dealing with. But I think that with all due respect to many people in the Orthodox and traditional Jewish communities, there's not been enough emphasis of what we call the theological roots, the yesodot, that the Maimonides of the Rambam called. These, in other words, what's the difference about living under a law of God or living under a law or a morality that can change, can be changed by those in power and whatever? Fundamental difference.
Yes, and that brings me a little bit to talking about this Dobbs case and our Constitution. I read the brief that Justice Alito wrote, and he talks about how in 1973, those justices found a right to abortion in the Constitution, which is one of our founding documents, legal documents in America. Of course, there was no such right, and but they found one in there. And then he goes on to say the different reasons that they supported their decision to make abortion legal in all 50 states. Very interesting. I'm going to put a link to the PDF in the chat for people if they want to read it. One of the things he talked about there was that the defenders of Roe cited this imagined historical record in the United States that abortion was commonly allowed in the states of the United States, and that was a bold-faced lie. Actually, when the 14th Amendment was passed, which is one of the reasons they used to allow Roe, saying that it was a due process under the law to allow people to have the right to abortion, 3/4 of the states in the United States prohibited abortion at all stages. And then in 1973, when Roe was passed, 30 still prohibited it. So we do have this tradition in America that we don't kill innocent babies in the womb. We had a very strong culture of life back then. But with the Roe decision, it collapsed. And so today, we were left with the results, these, disastrous results of a culture of death, and these 63 plus million babies that have gone. And that cannot be minimized in our public responses to why abortion should be severely curtailed. One of the lies that happens all the time coming out of the abortion media, Jewish and non-Jewish, is that there will be no life-saving measures for mothers now, anywhere, which of course is a lie. Our biblical tradition to save the life of the mother is reflected in every pro-life law that's passed around the country. I recently wrote an opinion piece that the Jewish press published about life-saving alternatives now for these situations. Very rare now that a baby has to be, brutally murdered to save its mother's life. They can be removed very safely now from the womb. So we don't have any cause to apologetic anymore about having to save the mother's life.
Yeah, no, that's not the case. And actually, the paradigm case that's cited in the Talmud of the baby that's too big for the birth canal was before there was cesarean section. So in that case, that was a different story. I can refer here again. I'm sorry to sound like a self-promoter, but my book, The Sanctity of Human Life, published by Georgetown University Press in 2007, readily available, discusses as a link in an essay that I wrote about stem cell research. And how a Talmudic text was totally misinterpreted by people who are promoting that. Now it's a kind of a moot point because they can get the stem cells from the placenta rather than from the embryo. But in terms of that, yes, and I think that in terms of the biblical roots. In an American context, especially, one has to indicate that the First Amendment is not opposed to religion. It's only opposed to the society saying that this religion is our official religion and everybody else's religion is either prohibited or maybe tolerated. That's all. It is not opposed to religion per se. And we Jews and Christians and Muslims, I wrote a book called The Natural Law, a Jewish, Christian, and Islamic trial, is that all three traditions realized that there was a fundamental law of God that prohibited such things as killing innocent people. That preceded our revelations. Our revelations built upon them, presupposed them. But when the Torah says in the Ten Commandments, "You shall not kill," which really means you shall not murder, it was not introducing something; it was recontextualizing something. It was something that people, kind of reasoned. Maybe God built this into the created order, and now came directly from God at Mount Sinai. So these are factors that we're not forcing our religion down people's throats.
Yes, that's right. That's right. But our radical Jewish brothers and sisters are trying to do just that with their calls for exceptions to these abortion bans for Jews, which places us on par with the Satanic Temple. It's so embarrassing. And I do want to, can I screen share just a minute? I wanted to share this article about this congregation and then share one of our fellows' letters. It's so beautiful. It's as important as it is to share the Torah-based arguments. It's so important to share heartfelt, intelligent appeals to our rabbis who are misguided on the subject. So let me just show this really quickly here. Let's see. Oh, here it is. Let me just share this real quickly. Here. Okay. Just want to read this really quickly here. This is from a Palm Beach County Jewish congregation challenges state's abortion law, and there's Governor DeSantis with his 15-week abortion ban, which takes effect July 1st. Yes, there it is. Okay, so a South Florida Jewish congregation has challenged a new state law that blocks abortions after 15 weeks of pregnancy, contending the measure violates privacy and religious freedom rights. So there you go. It's not it's freedom of religion, not freedom from religion. But they have turned this upside down. So the lawsuit filed Friday by Congregation Lador Vador seeks to block the law from taking effect July 1st. And then it says, this is what the congregation says. For Jews, all life is precious, and thus the decision to bring new life into the world is not taken lightly or determined by state fiat, the lawsuit said. In Jewish law, abortion is required if necessary to protect the health, mental, or physical well-being of the woman, or for many other reasons not permitted under the Act, the new law. As such, the Act prohibits Jewish women from practicing their faith free of government intrusion and thus violates their privacy rights and religious freedom. The lawsuit also said congregation members and other people who do not share the religious views reflected in the Act will suffer irreparable harm by having their religious freedom under the Florida Constitution violated. The failure to maintain the separation of church and state, like so many other laws in other lands throughout history, threatens the Jewish family and thus also threatens the Jewish people by imposing the laws of other religions upon Jews. Oh my goodness, it's so convoluted because, of course, abortion in Judaism, in Jewish culture, is what's threatening Jewish families. But so this I wanted to read because this is just beautiful. One of our supporters wrote this, and I just had to make it into a blog. So please bear with me. So I named this for him Rabbi Silver. That's the rabbi of this congregation. All life deserves protection. Drop your lawsuit. And this is what this gentleman wrote. As a disabled adult from a mother who had a very difficult delivery, the subject of life versus abortion is quite personal. I can report that my mother and father were quite happy with the eventual successful result of that delivery. Even with a degree of cerebral palsy, hearing loss, and a bit of learning disability, I am most happy and thankful to be alive. My children are also happy that I am in this world. Does not every Jewish baby killed move forward the Nazis' program? I was fortunately born in 1943 in the United States and therefore not subject to their tyranny. As a Jew, I am shocked to see how many supposed Jews support an imagined right to abort preborn babies. The Rambam in Mishnah Torah wrote that the Noahide laws define the killing of even one unborn baby in the mother's womb is murder. He also points out that this also applies to Jews and that such a murderer is liable to the death penalty. Is there anything unclear about this? Rabbi Aaron Soloveitchik, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and other rabbis warn that killing unborn babies is murder. Michaeline Matthews Roth, Harvard University Medical School states, if it is scientifically correct to say that an individual human life begins at conception, this is not a matter of belief. Life processes begin when DNA of the father and mother join at conception. The eventual result will be a human baby, never a cat, a camel, or a cow. There is no question about it. Also, Genesis 9:6-7, he who spills the blood of man, generic for human, including women, within man, in other words, woman, shall have his blood spilt, be executed. For in the image of God made he man, and you shall be fruitful and multiply, swarm the earth and multiply therein. Okay. We are told of Rebekah's difficult pregnancy with the twins Jacob and Esau. There is no hint that she considered abortion. In fact, there is not a single mention of an abortion in the entire Tanakh. There are instances where a person is permitted to kill in what we would call a home invasion that threatens the householders' lives. There's no circumstance where the killing of an unborn baby is permitted. The protection of maternal life only applies to the protection of her actual physical life. It does not apply to circumstances of inconvenience, job security, career path, or a man's preference not to support a child, among myriad other rationalizations. The idea that an infant is water for the first 40 days is medieval medical knowledge. Would you go for medical care to someone who believed that humors and vapors were instrumental in illnesses? I presume virtually everyone accepts the germ theory of disease, as I do. If God forbid I were to contract an illness or have an injury, I would not rely on any sort of pre-modern medical knowledge. When I was born in 1943, medicine was far advanced from the Middle Ages, for which I am quite thankful. We no longer hold to a flat earth with an upside-down bowl-like firmament overhead. Rain does not really come through windows in the sky. Scientific observations tell us that there is not an expanse of water under the earth and another over the earth. Rather, our planet is an oblate spheroid that revolves around a star, that is but one in a galaxy that is itself part of a galaxy cluster, and so on and on. There are more elements than air, earth, fire, and water. Science now tells us that life processes begin at conception and then continue until death. We have, thank God, gained more knowledge since the Middle Ages. Many people still need to adjust their understandings about the earliest stages of life, just as people have previously adjusted understandings of geology, astronomy, chemistry, disease causation, and other categories of knowledge. And that's from our friend Don Belding in Arizona. And I just think the world of him. He's one of our he's one of many people that write for us and share their sentiments with us, because I can't write everything, and Rabbi, you can't write everything that has to be written to respond to all the different fake Judaism opinion pieces that are out there, from Newsweek to the Atlantic to the Jerusalem Post, to the Jewish Press. I mean, they're all over the place. We have a lot of
that's a very moving statement. I mean, the people, for example, who are most opposed to physician-assisted suicide, which is now becoming Canada's, God forbid, is on the road to becoming the most open society for this murdering human beings. The people who are most opposed to it are the people who are physically challenged. They are most opposed to it because they know perfectly well that they're being told to get out of the way. Just like babies that are inconvenienced, somebody are told we should get them out of the way. So that is, very much, what we're dealing with. We know, for example, that it's told that a woman has a right to abortion, said that's her autonomy. But what about abortions that are to abort a female fetus? What about abortions that are wanted by the man who impregnated this woman? What about abortions that are simply there to make some kind of statement? All of that is, part of a culture of death, and that is, what we're dealing with.
Yes, and there's so much damage and destruction done to it, and we're getting short of time. So I wanted to just share a little bit about our healing program that we have coming up on July 28th. And one of our guests here, Meir from Israel, sent us, I asked him to help with a flyer with the Hebrew translations. We're Hebrew translation challenged here at the Jewish Pro-Life Foundation. Of course, Rabbi Novak isn't, but I would never dream of imposing on his busy time to ask him to translate stuff for us. And besides, we need a lot of people to become more active. And people are always asking me, what can we do? What can we do? So here's something that Meir did. I'll just share this quickly with you, and then I'll make one. We'll finish up then. Let me see where this is. Here it is. So Meir did something really very interesting. He put the Hebrew and the English together. So we would like very much to, I'm going to finish this off and put some background on it, but I would like very much, then we'll share it, and then our friends in Israel can post this. Can you see that? Should I try to make it a little bit bigger? Let me see here.
It's pretty visible.
Okay, so there it is, Tikvat Rachel. That's what our program is called, Rachel's Hope for All Her Children, both born and unborn. And Rabbi Novak did give us that translation years ago. Thank you, Rabbi. Abortion Hurts, It's Time to Heal. Special healing event Sunday, July 24th, 2022, 1 to 5 Eastern Time in our private Zoom room. We are incorporating Hebrew captioning this time. At our own risk with using some software that I'm going to purchase. No fees for the program. It's a unique opportunity to meet and participate in a post-abortion group encounter and discussion. It offers a unique teshuva-based approach to healing for Jewish women suffering from post-abortion trauma. And then afterwards, we have set up a chat room, a private chat room, where we can continue to have fellowship. And we have our co-facilitator is Barbara Beth54 at protonmail.com. You can email her if you would like to learn more about the program or register. And please share this information with your friends. So just to finish, I would like to just share that we have wonderful memes and graphics that we've been sharing on social media and in print Jewish media here for quite a few years now. And I think it's really helped share our message. It can be very complicated, but a picture says 1,000 words. So we are looking for people to translate some of the English text of our graphics into Hebrew so we can share them. So I'll just put that shout out. If you want to participate in that, please give us your contact information, or I put mine at the top of the chat. And let me see, was there something else I wanted to finish with here? No, I think that was all. I hope to get in, and it's 9:59, Mr. Gallen. What do you think about that?
Well, we started a little bit late, so And the next program with Rabbi Hanania Weitzman, our weekly Torah Fellowship seminar, isn't until 5:30. So we can continue recording another 15, 20 minutes if you like. And if Rabbi Professor Novak is available to join you.
Okay, well, let me show you some of these graphics, and then maybe we can have our question and answer now. How about that?
Whatever you think is best. It's your program.
Anybody has any questions? Let me just show this. Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's see. So we put a flyer in 5 Jewish newspapers every month. And here I have on our website the images that we've been publishing. And the Jewish Press was the first one that took our flyers several years ago. And now we have the Jewish Link New Jersey. There's the Florida Heritage Jewish News takes our flyers. The Jewish Voice takes our flyers. Is there another one? I can't remember the other one. But so, yeah. So these things make quite a splash. I get really great feedback from them. This one was the one we put in June. And then we have a bunch of these memes that I've created. We have a gentleman who's very active with us, and he has sent me scores of these how can it be? So I've made over 30 something of these how can it be that he's sent me, and then I put them to some kind of graphic. We have many of these things. And this is the kind of help that we need to have these English texts translated, and then we could put them in Israel social media. These are very effective. So just a bunch of them. So somebody could do one, or two or whatever. And then lastly, we did go to Washington, D.C. as an educational opportunity when our friends at the National Council of Jewish Women held their abortion justice rally. There we are. There's me and some of our supporters outside the Capitol. And I love this picture, especially. There's the rabbis from New York that came with their signs. But I made some beautiful posters. And I'll just go through them with you. This one. They were very effective at the rally. All you had to do was stand there with these posters, and it just belied everything that was being said there on the podium about we should shout for our abortion rights, and no mention of the baby there. It was amazing. So I brought the babies into the rally, and that was very effective. Here's another one.
Cecily, in the time we have left, I just want to add one other point that is a stalking point. There are people who are going to argue. There's a concept in the Talmud, Uber Yerachimo, that the fetus is a part of the mother. It doesn't have an independent life. That's been misinterpreted. But even if you were to argue, say that that's true, the Torah and the Jewish tradition clearly prohibits self-mutilation. That even if you regard the fetus as only part of the mother's body and not having an independent existence, we are not allowed to mutilate our bodies because our bodies do not belong to us. They've been lent to us by God. So that therefore, even if they're going to argue that, which can be, very carefully dissemble that argument, but even if they're going to present that argument, for argument's sake, even if you're right, you're still not allowed to mutilate yourself any more than you're allowed to commit suicide.
Wow.
And that is, even though we have compassion on people who did suicide, and I think that we should have compassion on women who've had abortions who are sorry about it. Tshuva is something that is always possible, and therefore our purpose of healing people who are suffering because of a very bad decision that they made or somebody else made on their behalf are not beyond the pale, are not beyond hope. But that is the recognition that our lives do not belong to us. They've been lent to us to care for and care for the lives of others as well.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. And so many women are so wounded and actually harmed by abortion. It's very rarely reported, and way minimized. It's daily. Some woman is being hauled off in an ambulance somewhere to an ER where she's been, very damaged. And then, of course, the psychological, mental, and emotional and spiritual damage. Yeah. In addition to infertility, I've spoken with so many Jewish women who thought, oh, like my parents will be really angry with me, or this boy isn't Jewish, or whatever. Or the mother drags them to the abortion clinic, right? And they all think that she'll be married someday and she'll have a baby and everything will be. They don't have any babies. Yeah. They can't have any babies.
Well, and they can't carrying that with them, and those who have realized a very bad decision that they made, because they recognize that and are not trying to justify, which they're not going to turn to us, then we have to, as we offer alternatives to women to make a choice. The pro-choice people say make a choice, but not, that this Jane's Revenge are bombing the pregnancy centers. So apparently it's not a choice for them. The choice is only you do it our way or no way, my way or the highway. But in terms of this is a bad decision, and we're here to help you get your life back together. We can't erase that, but we don't reject you. We accept you and help you. Just as we offer an alternative before abortion, so we offer an alternative to those who realize and are suffering because they made a very bad decision, and that is the fact that we're not just going around telling people what they shouldn't do. We're providing alternatives so that people can do the right thing. The way I would conceive of it is as follows. In the halakha, we're honored to honor our parents, but there's a statement that we're not supposed to honor. We don't have to honor parents if they are very wicked people, Rishayim. So the question is, of the person who was the result of, let's say, an incestuous union, which becomes a mamzer, the problems there, is the mamzer required to honor his or her father and mother? And the answer is yes, if the father and mother regretted what they did. Mm-hmm. If they didn't regret what they did, then he doesn't have to honor them. So if he chooses to do so, that's an option. So therefore, I mean, that analogy just kind of came to mind to me, is that those who think that they made a bad decision, like the parents of the mamzer, they realize that they made a bad decision by doing what they did. If they were chozrim b'tshuva, if they really repented of this, and if they say that they have, then they have, and we don't have to interrogate them. Then we have to help them get their life together. Get their life in order with God and with their fellow human beings.
Yes, I often share with women that contact us who are suffering that there's a whole industry trying to entrap them, that succeeded in entrapping them into this bad decision. And then, so they cannot be wholly blamed for it. And also because there's such a lack of Torah understanding in the public square and in many Jewish communities and in many Jewish families about the Torah commandments to choose life and not to destroy life, because they don't know that. They're very ignorant. And I know and understand that in our Jewish tradition, if a Jew commits a sin out of ignorance forgiveness is and mercy is most definitely available if there's a contrite heart and a turning back to God. I love that about our tradition. I sit here. It's very humbling for me in many ways to be the president of this foundation because I don't consider myself to be a righteous individual. I'm a garden variety Jewish woman raised with an observant dad and an agnostic mom. May their souls rest in peace. I miss them so much. But I really, I'm not without my own sin and regret in life. So I'm so grateful that most of it, I would say the bulk of it was out of ignorance. And I'm so grateful that I have turned around and can do some, righteous work here, but I'm not alone. and I'm so grateful for that humility. I'm very friendly and I don't judge anyone. I don't judge our brothers and sisters who shout their abortions. I don't judge and condemn anyone who's made this tragic decision. I feel personally I only avoided that bullet, through grace. I certainly, and the fact that my father did his best to terrorize his 3 daughters into behaving themselves as young adults, and it really very much worked with me. It's like, no, geez, I'm not going to go do that, Daddy. So I'm so grateful, even though our family life was very dynamic, and I'm so happy about it now that I was saved some of these traumas in life. But I do love working with all the people that I'm meeting. We actually have a connection now with the editors at The Forward, the most liberal Jewish newspaper on the planet Earth. And so, this is just beautiful. And we're hoping for wonderful things now, helping Jewish people in all the states and in Israel return. It feels so good to return. And thank God, that we have that available to us. So let's take some questions. I know somebody in the chat asked you, Rabbi Novak, for the biblical reference for the not mutilating your body. I remember I saw that.
Yeah, it's in the 9th chapter of Genesis. It's in the 9th chapter of Genesis. And the Talmudic reference is Baba Kama, in the Bavli, the Babylonian Talmud, Baba Kama 91b, where it talks about God requiring you to not shed your own blood, which not only means killing yourself, but also mutilating yourself. So they can check that, and these sources have been verified. Okay. Cecily, I can't hear you, and your video is.
Yes, I know.
Okay, so that's the reference there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now, but your face is, you're getting paler and paler. Which
So let me turn my video off for a minute and turn it back on. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, let me see. Okay, that's okay. Maybe that'll be a little bit better. Okay, here I'm back. Technical problems.
That's the reference about self-mutilation.
Okay, thank you, Rabbi. Does anyone have a question? You want to just unmute? Oh. Yes, yes, Mayor Hannah and Rabbi Dovi Auerbach helped with the translation of the flyer. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Yes, okay. Yes, Sephora.
Hi, thank you so much, Novak and Mr. Gallen, for this amazing discussion and presentation. It's very heartening to be part of this because I think after the Dobbs decision, a lot of responses from Jewish figures and accounts, some very prominent, that are very favorable towards abortion, almost grieving the Dobbs decision. Those were the most surprising and disappointing for me. So it's great to be here and learn more about the authentic Jewish perspective and how we can support life and life-affirming decisions. Rabbi Novak and anyone else who would want to weigh in, given the ambiguity, legal ambiguity around maternal health these days in abortion law, I'm wondering what's an example of when Rabbanim might permit an abortion in a non-lethal case. The mother's life is not immediately and directly in jeopardy. Abortion is not necessarily, there's no other means to save her. But what is another reason that rabbis might permit it in that situation?
Here again, I'm telling you, that is a case by case decision. If there's that situation, then a woman should, if she knows the sources herself, she can interpret them for herself. But if she doesn't, she should rely upon somebody that she turns to for other halachic guidance or governance, if you will. That is, people have a tendency to shop around. So I was once told a certain woman that a certain very right-wing rabbi in my community permitted an abortion. And I said, would you turn to him with any other question? Oh, no, I don't agree with him. I said, well, that's kind of shopping around. And as a rabbi, I know that when people present questions to me, I want to know whom I'm talking to. And I don't know what their interest is. And I don't do it over the phone or by Zoom or email. I want you to come in and I want to find out whom I'm talking to under those circumstances. So there are cases there that have to be decided, and we cannot decide in advance how this is the case. But so that is what I am indicating. What the real question is that if the question of mental health, not just how one feels about it, but clinical depression and whatever, that's something that has to be decided on a case by case basis, and you don't give a you don't paskin a shaila. You don't ask a question that hasn't been actually asked by a real human being. So here it's general. I remember when because it's been a while since I functioned as a rabbi in a congregation, but I remember as a rabbi in a congregation before Pesach, I would put the general guidelines of how to keep your house kosher for Pesach and how to celebrate the Seder. And I would say, if you have any particular question, phone me. In other words, so that is the point. So what we are presenting are the general principles that are involved in this, and that the burden of proof is on the accuser. The burden of proof is those, and therefore should be referred to a rabbi whose rulings they would accept in other questions as well. But a responsible rabbi doesn't answer these type of questions for people who are shopping around.
Thank you.
I always do encourage rabbis in my opinion pieces when they are published or in our blogs to be very open to addressing mental health issues for women when they're pregnant. There's lots of help available, lots of support, childcare for their other children, financial help, all sorts of things that, practical help and advice and support. For the Jewish community, I think every Jewish place of worship needs to have a Respect Life group who rallies around women that are having trouble with pregnancy and go as far as to adopt the baby if it's just not going to be possible for her to take care of it, or the family's just too stressed. That is the Jewish, compassionate, practical solution to these things. But we need to introduce these ideas into our Jewish communities and let our rabbis know that that's what we want, so that they take these things into account.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Judy, you've been so active on the chat. Thank you so much. You have so many good comments to make. Judy talked about the shame. I mean, as soon as we leave Tara, as soon as we make a detour, we have shame and guilt. That's just the way we're made. It's human nature. But then we need to address that in life-saving ways and not make more and more mistakes and then heap all the shame and guilt more and more. It just leaves us with a lot of broken, neurotic community members. And we're going to be turning that around.
Well,
We're
I
going to be
think
working at it
that's
every
why I wanted
day.
to have myself on this. I think it's, it's not the shame. It's just that I want to ask the question. I know gay is another hot issue. And this was in the mid 80s, before you had GSAs in high schools. I asked the question, would you be better off telling your parent you're a gay or telling your parent you're an unplanned pregnancy? And do you know what came out ahead? Gay. That's how shameful it is in our community to have an unplanned baby. And it's, we got to break that down.
Sure.
I don't believe half these people are really pro-choice because they really believe it. I think they want to hide their own abortions. If this broke, this closet's busted. I think they know it too. It's coming out. Most of college students, I'm suspecting a lot of college women were forced. High school women, that ends.
Yes, unfortunately, we do look for love in all the wrong places. But anyway, it's all in the journey. Everyone's on their own spiritual path, and we're here to help if we can.
Or as National Jewish Women, my mother was there. It wasn't pro-choice. It was moderately pro-choice, but they weren't actively pro-choice. I don't know what happened. My mother passed in 2014. She was probably active. The last time may have been about 2010, which was reasonably able to get out. There was never this actively pro-choice. I don't remember any. It was more of a social group. I don't remember anything like this. It was all over the literature.
Yes, when I was at the rally, the Jewish Rally for Abortion Justice in Washington, D.C., sponsored by the National Council of Jewish Women, I got a very eerie feeling. It reminded me of all the money that was made and continues to be made in the race industry. There's a lot of money to be made in abortion. A lot of people's reputations and professional positions improve if they're involved with the abortion issue, the pro-abortion issue. There's billions of dollars running around in campaigns and in Washington, D.C. and state assemblies. And this is a vehicle for people to improve their position. That's part of it. Make a lot of money. That's another part of it. They unfortunately, they don't recognize the eugenics basis for abortion, the anti-Semitism that's involved, or how they will eventually. This is the scariest part. Besides the loss of life and Yiddishkeit, we will get caught in a trap again because Jews. If I always say, once it's legal to kill a Jew inside the womb, it'll be legal to kill a Jew outside the womb in no time. It's happened over and over and over again. And these people do not understand that. So we're trying to change this thing around. So it's not legal.
It doesn't have to be, isn't it? And also, the Jews for Reproductive Rights. You realize over 700 rabbis signed it?
Yeah, it's over 1,500. It's over 1,500 now, rabbis for repro. Yes.
And that's pretty,
Well, Judy, we have a speakers list now, and it's growing. So you can check out our website, Jewish Pro Life
I've been on it.
Yeah.
It
So we
has
have
to
a
be more
speakers
than
list.
I think the thing is, everybody's not going to be a traditional Jew. You have to convince the liberal Jews not to get involved, and it's not really about religion. It's just the whole thing. There's non-religious people that are pro-life.
Okay, Judy, thank you. Yes, Lowell has messaged me. We have to close. I want to thank everyone for being here today, my friends. This just feels so great. Rabbi Novak, you're a treasure. Thank you so very much. Yes, and Lowell, thank you so very much. We look forward to seeing you the 4th Tuesday of July, God willing.